very good afternoon to all the viewers. Welcome back to another episode of BW People HR Voices. Today we have with us Ms. Mitalee Dabral, the country HR leader at Wayfair. She's an HR professional with over 2 decades of experience across leading organizations and startups. She joined Wayfair from ShareChat and has also served at Access Cades, Ola Cabs, Accenture, and Infosys Technologies. She is a TISS alumnus and has over 20 years of experience as an HR generalist. Firstly, welcome, Ms. Mitalee. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Savi.
So today's conversation is going to revolve around the tech talent in India. Now, Mitali, we know that the hiring in STEM roles, it has risen significantly in India, especially when we talk about women in STEM roles. The numbers have gone up. So India also has a very diverse pool of talent. How do you ensure, or how can leaders ensure that diversity and inclusion is incorporated in the hiring processes?
Yeah, so I think, see, diversity in thought leads to, diversity in terms of, getting value on the table. It talks about better decision making. It talks about, better business outcomes. So these are a couple of, undisputed truths, I think, which all of us agree. And for us, diversity at Wayfair, it's one of the core tenet, right? It's a very, very integral part of our business strategy. And keeping that in mind, we have around a 5-year plan as well. It is our DAI matrix plan, where we hope to be industry leaders in this space. And there are a couple of things which are very close to our heart, right, with respect to diversity. One is about creating an environment at Wayfair where employees get their whole self to work, where we celebrate individual strengths and we thrive in the success stories. And also, it's, I think, also more about best to tailor the experiences of employees as well, right? So there is no one size fits all. So I think it's all about inclusive practices. So that ecosystem within Wayfair is pretty much thriving in diversity, right? From a business perspective to our employee policies, our principles. And in terms of integrating, not only at Wayfair but in other organizations as well. So there are a couple of things which I think will go a long way in ensuring that we have a robust, diverse culture. From a hiring perspective and getting good talent in the organization, I think one of the things which is done industry wide is targeting interviewer capabilities, right? So having right trainings in place where we take care of removing unconscious biases during the entire interview process, which I think is very, very important. And I think second is also in terms of about monitoring the funnel, right? What happens to the diversity pipeline, right, from sourcing stage till offer stage. We have to very, very closely monitor that funnel and make interventions if required. Partner with organizations which take us to the areas where we find the diverse talent, right? Which kind of supplement our diversity pipeline. That I think is very, very important. Apart from that, I think the most important part is the readiness of the organization to nurture diversity. I think that's very, very important. Have a fertile environment, inclusive policies. So from a Wayfair perspective, if I can talk about, we have very robust employee resource groups. They are about gender in tech, or be it women in tech, women at work, caregivers at work. And these resource groups are the ones which provide platform to employees, not only for their professional growth and mentoring, but also having an interface with the industry as well, right? So I think all these coupled with the kind of the mindset which is there right from top down is something which is very, very conducive to diversity and attracting talent in that space. And I think lastly, it's more about walking the talk, I think, Savi. It goes beyond optics, right, in diversity. And if you look at our leadership team, for example, we have our CFO as well as our CTO, who happen to be very established women leaders, right? So I think, yeah.
Thank you for sharing this. But at the end, it all comes down to retaining this talent, right? So the tech talent, it is in demand globally. How can organizations take a step forward to retain these employees to prevent brain drain and also employee burnout that is happening?
Yeah, I think we have to set our house in order from an industry perspective. Brain drain in India it's have been a topic of discussion for decades now. And there are a couple of things here, and I will draw heavily from my experience in startups here. One is definitely about having the wherewithal and the intent to invest, in learning and development of tech talent, right? As a tech organization, so we have to willfully take measures, carve out budgets, be genuinely interested in upskilling our talent, keeping in pace with the external demands, and technology is very, very fast changing, right? So you have to demonstrate and have avenues which is built in your people policies and an active culture of learning, right? Which we do have at Wayfair. And I think same should be one of the levers to be used industry wide as well. Um, Apart from that, I think there is a very very strong partnership also required with government, right? For taking care of, because the entire ecosystem has to support the talent to be within India and thriving, right? So when I talk of government support, it's all about providing a space, let's say, to entrepreneurs, right? Making it easier for them to come up and have their ideas come to life. Partnering with industry thought leaders, right? And having them, using them as a resource and enabling the entrepreneurs, right, in terms of mentoring them. And the third aspect, I think, is a very very important aspect as well, is around uh, providing meaningful work, right? So for our techies, I think one of, while of course the economic part of it holds good, but I think another thing which draws them outside India is a meaningful work where they see assignments and projects which deliver business impact, right?
Hmm.
It's not about being mere cog in the wheel. It's about giving them work where they actually feel satisfied with respect to the quality of work which we offer. So I think these are a couple of things which I definitely feel would work towards arresting brain drain from India. Yeah.
So you mentioned that technology is evolving every day. We know that generative AI, Meta has come into the space. So the technology is evolving rapidly. How do you ensure that the existing employees at the organization, or how can HR leaders ensure that continuous upskilling is happening in terms of emerging technologies? What could be some strategies or L&D programs that can be employed?
Yeah, so I think, and I refer to that, just now, in terms of one is uh, the intent in terms of investing in employees. That's very, very important. It's not, so it's not going to be about parking n number of training hours annually, which used to be, if you see, 2 to 3 decades back, it used to be pretty much, the unsaid hygiene rule, that you would have, X hours of training parked for every employee. It has to go beyond lip service. It has to, come from an intent to draw business outcomes out of this training, right? Very very closely tie your business strategy to the kind of programs you're designing for your employees, right? So they have to be very very in terms of industry specific, very relevant to the kind of business we are in, right? Complementing the skills which we may need in future, right? Not only now, but making employees ready for let's say 1 or 2 quarters down with respect to the business realities we're going to explore. So keeping that in tandem and having a genuine intent to upskill the current workforce, rather than going out looking for the same skill set in the market, and having the intent to invest in our current employees. I think that's very very important, especially in the technology space. And like you rightly said, it's very very dynamic and very very fast changing, right? I mean, as we speak, we have so many technologies coming in, and for from a tech perspective, from a techie, I think uh, to remain relevant in the market is very very important. I mean, you ask any software engineer today, right, or any campus graduate, for that matter, if even if I talk to youngsters, right, and I think they're very very excited about the pace at which technology is changing, and there is an innate hunger, to be relevant and to be informed, and to be skilled, to be of use, in that space. So I think that's very very important, in terms of uh, genuine investment in learning, in collaboration, and in tools, wherewithals. It may be maybe partnering with a lot of online platforms. We have enough and more, and thanks to COVID, there's so many things which have become accessible remotely, right? So you could upskill yourself, sitting at home, right? So it's up to the organization to provide that kind of environment and ecosystem.
Right, very rightly said. Earlier, you also mentioned about collaboration with the government, and just now you mentioned about the fresh graduates that are passing out of colleges. So, what kind of, I'll start with how can organizations collaborate with, let's say, educational institutions or industry associations to address the skill gap that is in India? Also, what are you looking for in your hiring process among the candidates and the potential people that you want to hire in the tech? What kind of skill sets are you looking for today?
Uh, so I think campus and educational institutions, it's a very very fertile ground,
Hmm.
and it's an excellent opportunity for industry to partner with government, with institutions, with engineering colleges, and help develop industry relevant curriculum. Right, I think that's very very important. It could go from establishing campus relations and catch them young, right? It could start from, industry leaders interfacing with the faculty. It could be about, going there, taking few courses, taking guest lectures, and ensuring that whatever is being taught is relevant to the current market, right? Times have changed and they have changed rapidly. I remember, 3 decades back when I used to be in college, there used to be, a huge gap in terms of, what we were taught in theory and what actually used to happen in practice, right? And I think last 3 decades has taught us, if nothing but about be better prepared of a tomorrow which, we could never even imagine. We've seen a lot of unforeseen things which have happened, right, from COVID to other things. So it's all the more, the need is even more critical for us to have a workforce ready, which can be up and running straight out of college, right? So helping students partner, with corporates, giving them internships, making them industry ready, helping them solve real problems, learning from the environment real time. That's something which the onus, I think, is on the corporate as well as on the educational institutions. And from that perspective, I think having a robust campus program is very, very critical, right? And from a Wayfair perspective, I know globally we have a very robust campus program, where we partner extensively with colleges. We have interns coming in doing live projects with us for 6 months, and it's very thriving, right? And it's rightly tagged as, Wayfair being a home of possibilities, right, for the talent, in campus. So that's something I think which will go a long way in
Right.
terms of, one is of course establishing our brand in the market, which I think very, very important. But more than that, I think, a genuine interest in capturing this talent, right at infancy, giving them the right environment, so that they see and they learn, and they become, a productive workforce as soon as they pass out, right? So I think that's very, very critical.
Right. But when I ask you about the skill sets, I know being dynamic when technologies are changing every day, the business landscape is also very dynamic. So it's very important for a candidate to be dynamic and resilient. But what kind of, as an HR leader, what do you look for in terms of skills in a potential candidate?
So I think, when we are in college, I think, while of course the focus is more on in terms of, what is, uh, in terms of, the curriculum, the way that the student has, gone through in terms of the entire learning process for last 3 to 4 years. What are the expertise, what are the areas of interest, what is the area of expertise of a particular student. At the same time, I think we also need to realize, Savi, they are very young, right? So
Hmm.
they are, when we are talking about an engineering graduate, they are students in their early 20s, right? And life is yet to happen, right? So their wherewithal and their worldview possibly, is very limited. So I
Right.
think the onus is on us as employers, to provide them that opportunity. So what I would look for, or what HR professionals would look for, when we go to campus, is more about the behavioral aspect in terms of, is the student enthusiastic, right? What is the curiosity around, right? Is there an intent to learn, right? I think those things are very, very important. It's more about, the leaning in from the student, and also for us, right? I think the onus is more on us in terms of, whether we can match the aspirations of this young talent. They require grooming, right? It's very, very raw talent at the end of the day. So, while from a work perspective they are fully equipped from a technological perspective, but I think the softer aspects of honing a talent, that onus lies on HR professionals. So for us, it's a very, very raw talent, and that's why I think, it's very, very important for us, when we go to campuses, etc., to uh, to educate, I think, students around, what an organization stands for. What is the thing, which they can expect from the organization, and what is it, which an organization can provide, right? So it's a two-way exchange. But like I said, the onus is more on the employers. Tell them about what an organization really is. What is it which they are required to do? What are people principles? What do you mean when we say we have a vision and we have a mission statement, right? So I think, the education is more from the employer side than from the campus side.
Right. Now, when we come to the gig economy part of the industry, we know that it's on the rise, especially in the festive season. We are seeing that it's gaining a lot of traction. So, how can HR leaders balance the hiring of full-time gig employers or full-time employees with contract or freelance workers to meet the tech needs of an organization? What are your views on this?
Yeah, I think so. Gig economy is something, which is, last, I think, last decade or so. It's become quite a buzzword, and we've had a lot of workforce which is now into freelancing. And again, I think it's an after effect of COVID as well. Also, our startup ecosystem is largely responsible for a thriving gig economy. And I think there are pros and cons of this approach, right, overall. And from an HR professional perspective, I think there are two aspects which I would like to call out. See, what has changed is, one is the employment contract with a gig worker, and there is another aspect of a psychological contract, which has changed with the gig worker. When I say employment contract, as an HR professional, I will look at flexible working hours. I will look at salary, and I will look at compensation models. I will also look at data security. I will also look at intellectual property rights. Right, those are the things from a gig economy perspective. Some things which I want to ponder upon from an employment contract perspective. From a psychological contract perspective, and which is more about the unsaid terms of employment with any employee, uh, that will undergo a very very interesting change, right? Because when we say psychological contract, we talk about benefits, we talk about social security, we talk about uh, employee health insurance. We talk about things to fall back on, and an employee's sense of job security is very very important. How do we address those in a freelancer or a contract worker, right?
Right.
As an organization, what are my responsibilities there? How do I see that contract evolving? My
Right.
engagement initiatives, right? How while there is an economic positive turn of having gig economy, but how will that contract change over time, right? What are we expecting in terms of and that's very very important, right? Because that's something which is very integral to any organization's DNA, right?
Mm.
So I think as an HR professional, it'll be very interesting for us to see how that contract changes, and what is it which we can come up with, with respect to out of the box initiatives, right? To keep this workforce engaged and productive.
Right. Thanks, Mitali. But when we come to the challenges of the tech industry, we have to talk about data privacy and cybersecurity because it is a growing concern in India. How do you address the upskilling needs related to these areas in the tech industry specifically?
Uh, yeah, I think cybersecurity is something which is extremely important, especially now that we have the digital aspect of it, the entire business, right, which is very very strong. We have everything which is lending itself to online transactions, etc. Right, our entire data is out there. From industry perspective, e-commerce has to be extremely watchful because we have our customers' data with us. So cybersecurity is something which is of extreme importance to us. We and as and I think industry wide, the only answer to this upcoming area of concern is increased partnership, like I said, with educational institutions, with organizations which provide expert services in cybersecurity, partnering with industry leaders, upskilling our internal talent, working with our internal IT teams, right? Because they are the guardians of our system security inside. So partnering with our internal teams, ensuring that we can upskill our internal talent with respect to the skill set, partnering them to understand where we can get it from the market from outside, right? So I think there has to be a kind of an encompassing approach to it to solve it collectively. But yeah, it is extremely extremely important. So I think increased dialogue with industry and talking more and more about it. So we do have internal programs, where we educate employees. One is education around it, talking enough about it, and what are the basic measures we can take internally as well as externally, right, to prevent any kind of a mishap in this space. So yeah, so I think these are multiple pronged approaches, but I think we are yet to see, and I'm sure they'll come up in terms of specialized programs, which make our tech workforce capable of specifically focusing on this area of expertise, right? So I think it's already upcoming. So garnering that talent from the market itself also would be a great help.
Thanks, Mitali. Lastly, most of our viewers, they are HR professionals, employers, employees. What would be your last piece of advice to them?
Yeah, the world is changing, and the world is changing fast, right? So as an HR professionals, I think our radar always has to be up. And there are some things which don't go out of fashion, right? So I think what doesn't go out of fashion is fostering an environment in your organization where employees feel cared for, where employees feel a sense of belonging, where we can pass on the message through our policies, processes, structure, that you matter to us, right? I think that's something which will never go out of fashion, which will never go out of the radars of anybody, right? So when you're building an organization as an HR professional, if I can inculcate that sense of belongingness, I think that's core to an HR function, right, and an HR professional. And there's a very interesting quotation, I think, which I read long back, when we were in college, and it was about, so where I matter, I belong, right, and where I belong, I invest, and where I invest, I have ownership, and when I have ownership, I care, and when I care, I am that organization. So I think these few words resonate with me over the decades, and I think it'll do good for HR professionals to hold them very close to our heart. Anything which we work for, it's this is the core tenet, I think, which we should always be guided for.
Right. Thank you for sharing the lovely quote. I think you're going to be an inspiration for all our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you. Thanks, Avi. Very
Thank you.
nice talking to you.